always think that it's an afternoon every time it's afternoon. First of all, Your Excellency, CS Miano has given me this opportunity to just make a few remarks to say welcome to the port. Captain William Ruto has made all the remarks we needed to hear about what we are doing here at the port. And Your Excellency, I know we have another function in the afternoon where I'll make a few remarks concerning a few things that we're also doing here. Mine, on behalf of my colleagues, is to just say you're welcome to the port. Congratulations to the new MD and the new board members. And congratulations to Grain Bulk GBHL, Grain Bulk Handlers Limited. I don't want to be like Mustafa, who cannot say Gachagua, who cannot mention the name of the Deputy President, for the work you are doing here. Our job here is to make sure, Your Excellency, we make this port very efficient and very friendly to investors like GBHL, so that they can be able to make our work here and our clearance of goods become fast. I want to thank our development partners for partnering with us at this very critical time in our country. When I stood there, two things were running through my mind. On one part, I was very happy that there is food for us to go and distribute to the people who are needy. On the other side, I was very sad that 60 years after independence, we still need that kind of support for us to feed our own people. And I believe, Your Excellency, the Deputy President, your government, with President William Ruto, is going to put to an end this type of approach, so that our partnership with our development partners will be based on win-win, partnership of investment, like in the port and other areas. We will have sorted the basic things about food and our country. Asanteni sana, and welcome to the port. Thank you very much. And thank you, CS Rebecca, for giving me the opportunity. Thank you. Oh, sorry. It's now my greatest honor and pleasure to welcome the CS of East Africa and ASAL, Honorable Rebecca Miano. Please, round of applause to welcome the very gracious lady and my senior in the legal profession.
Your Excellency, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, Honorable Rigathi Gachagua, my cabinet colleagues, the PSs who are here, Excellencies, ambassadors, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we are here today to witness development partners' support for the food security in Kenya. We are today receiving grain from Ukraine, put together by about 8 or so countries, and also to receive sorghum from USAID. And in this regard, I want to acknowledge the presence of Ambassador of the United States of America, Her Excellency Ambassador Meg Whitman, the Ambassador of Ukraine, who is here with us, Ambassador Andriel. We have the High Commissioner of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, Her Excellency Jane Marriott. The Ambassador of the Kingdom of Norway is here also. Ambassador of the Kingdom of Belgium is here. Ambassador of the Italian Republic, Ambassador of the Swiss Confederation, Ambassador of the Czech Republic, First Secretary Food Security and Water Embassy of the Kingdom of Netherlands, Head of Mission, Honorary Consulate of Slovakia, and also the UN Resident Coordinator. Your Excellency, it's a momentous occasion that we have today. But before I make remarks and invite you, I want to invite the UN Resident Coordinator, Dr. Stephen Jackson.
Asante Waziri. Mheshimiwa Naibu Rais, mawaziri, mabalozi, viongozi, marafiki, hamjambo. There's both symbolic and material importance to what we're marking here today, Your Excellency. This deep hunger crisis over the last 3 years in Kenya comes at the intersection of global forces that are very much beyond Kenya's control. Its deepest driver, as we all know, is the climate emergency. Kenya is at the mercy of mutating meteorology in the Indian Ocean, triggering the most intense and enduring drought since records began. But that already disastrous situation has been rendered catastrophic by the global shockwaves resulting from the war in Ukraine, disrupting global supply chains and significantly adding to the prices faced by the world's poorest. So it's a gloomy picture, but today we have 3 points of light to celebrate in our collective fight to support the most vulnerable Kenyans. In the first of these, when he signed the Black Sea Grain Initiative last year in Istanbul, Turkey, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres described the resumption of Ukrainian grain exports via the Black Sea amidst the ongoing war as, and I quote, a beacon of hope in a world that desperately needs it. This UN and global plan, which also links to efforts to ensure that Russian food and fertilizer reach global markets, this plan supports the stabilization of spiraling food prices worldwide and is helping stave off famine, affecting record millions of people globally. Today's shipment under the Black Sea Grain Initiative has been facilitated by generous contributions from many of the countries represented here today: United Kingdom, Norway, Belgium, Italy, Netherlands, Switzerland, Slovenia, Czech Republic, and others. And I want to say a big asanteni. It will provide enough food to support more than 500,000 refugees for 4 months and 3 weeks, and 265, more than 250,000 drought-affected Kenyans for a further 2 months. Second point of light. It gives me enormous pleasure, Your Excellency, to announce today that the United Nations Central Emergency Response Fund, or the CERF as we call it for short, has made yet again an additional allocation, this time of another 8 million United States dollars, from its underfunded emergencies window to the 2023 Kenya Drought Flash Appeal. This much-needed support will go to strengthen the actions of national and local NGOs who stand on the front lines of the Kenyan emergency response. And I think you all know that the CERF, this Central Emergency Response Fund, is a global facility that is supported again by many of those present here today: Belgium, Czechia, Italy, Netherlands, Norway, the UK, the United States, and more than 50 others around the world, ranging from the most small, Monaco and Singapore, to some of the very biggest, such as China and the Russian Federation. So our deep thanks go to all those who continue to contribute to this CERF. It's a vital multilateral emergency instrument in a world that is facing deep polarization against the highest levels of humanitarian need globally that we've ever seen. And finally, Your Excellency, the third point of light, and at by far the greatest scale, we're also here today to recognize the signal contribution of the United States government to the people of Kenya and to the Kenyan government in this drought response. Just today, WFP, the World Food Programme, is processing through the port some 16,000 metric tons of sorghum generously contributed by the United States government through USAID. And that alone is enough to feed more than 500,000 Kenyans for over 4 months. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Since the declaration of the drought emergency in 2021, the United States government has remained by far the most generous and the most consistent partner to the Kenyan drought response. It's just after St. Patrick's Day in Ireland, we would say that they are the biggest by a country mile, is what we would say in Ireland. Contributions just through the World Food Programme, and they're not, of course, alone, just through WFP already amounted to $277 million in funding and another $60 million in food commodities over just the past year. In short, the United States is providing about 80% of all humanitarian assistance going to the drought-ravaged parts of Kenya. And America's most recent contribution of an additional $126 million in food assistance to the drought response, announced in February, will help meet the urgent needs for approximately 1.3 million people across Kenya. So I hope you'll forgive me, Mheshimiwa Naibu Rais, if I address Ambassador Whitman directly. Even as we recognize today the efforts of so many partners, I really want nonetheless to take this opportunity to send a particular and heartfelt vote of thanks through you from United Nations Kenya, and I'm sure from the Kenyan government, to the United States government and people for this enormous solidarity. And let me use this also as an occasion to appeal to all partners, as His Excellency the President has done, to dig deeply. This drought continues to bite very hard, and Kenya remains a hair's breadth away from famine. We've marked some very significant successes today, but we must all do much, much more if we're to secure the lives and livelihoods of Kenyans hit by this mother of all droughts. Asanteni sana.
We now welcome the Ukrainian ambassador, His Excellency Andriy.
Honorable Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, Your Excellencies, dear participants, a little more than a year ago when Russia launched its brutal and unprovoked military aggression against my country, many politicians and experts predicted that Ukraine will be crushed in few weeks. But we are still standing as free and independent nation, and our resolve to bring aggressor to justice and liberate all the occupied territories is unbending. Today, historic day, as we gather to mark the arrival to Kenya of the first ship with 25,000 metric tons of Ukrainian wheat procured from Mombasa sister city Odessa, with grain from Ukraine humanitarian program, which has been initiated by the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, in November last year. The program is aimed to feed 5 million people in Africa and Asia during this year. For now, 30 countries have joined the Grain from Ukraine initiative, which have already raised around $200 million. We have already sent 140,000 tons of Ukrainian grain to countries which need it most. Shipment to Kenya was made possible due to consistent and steadfast efforts of World Food Programme and 8 European donor countries represented today by distinguished ambassadors or diplomats. We would like to thank you all for joining hands and making this great contribution to the drought response efforts of the Kenyan government possible, as millions of people in Kenya are suffering from extreme food insecurity due to severe drought and galloping food prices. Prior to 2022, Ukraine was one of the main suppliers of grain for the World Food Programme and the fourth largest grain exporter globally. Our agriculture was heavily damaged by Russian invasion. Missile strikes and shelling by Russian troops has destroyed dozens of farms, stocks of food and seed, silos, warehouses, oil deposits, agricultural machinery and equipment. Millions of hectares of agricultural land are occupied or mined. Our farmers suffer from lack of fertilizers, market volatility, low purchasing prices and broken logistic chains. Notwithstanding these difficulties, we are determined to remain a guarantor of global food security and feed the people of the world. Even as our own people are bleeding and dying, it's not only our responsibility, but also sincere feeling from our hearts. Since in 1932 and 1933, Ukraine suffered from Holodomor, death by hunger, imposed by our country by Stalin regime. Despite all the Russian pressure, Black Sea grain corridor brokered by the UN Secretary General and President of Turkey on July 22 last year continues its operation. It is important to keep this food lifeline intact and fast. Because of the inspection delays by the Russian team in Joint Coordination Center in Istanbul, export of agricultural products by the grain corridor does not exceed 3.4 million tons per month, despite our ability to give the world 6 million tons monthly. As a result of Russian actions, there are constant queues of more than 100 vessels, and Ukrainian ports face the problem of shortage of new fleet for loading. We ask the Kenya government and all our partners to continue speaking in one voice in support of Ukraine, demanding removal of obstacles for the functioning of Black Sea grain corridor and restoring peace in Ukraine based on the principles of the UN Charter and UN General Assembly's resolution adopted on February 28, 2023, and supported by 141 countries, including Kenya, which demands that Russia immediately, completely, and unconditionally withdraw all its military forces from the territory of Ukraine. Today's event gives us a beam of hope. Hope that we can together solve our problems and make this world a better place. So let us celebrate this success and continue working hard to bring relief to those who are desperate, to those who suffer, and in need of our help. Thank you very much for your attention.
We'll now invite the Ukraine Goodwill Ambassador, followed by 2 representatives of group of 8 donors.
His Excellency, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, His Excellency, Her Excellency, Cabinet Secretary Rebecca Miano, and other Cabinet Secretaries and Permanent Secretaries here present, members of the Government of the Republic of Kenya, and other dignitaries, Her Excellency, Ambassador Mick Whitman, Ambassador of the United States of America to Kenya, His Excellency, Ambassador Andrei Prevetnik, Ambassador of Ukraine to Kenya, Her Excellency, the High Commissioner of the UK and Ireland to Kenya, and the other 7 ambassadors representing the 8 countries that have contributed to the current delivery of grain from Ukraine to the people of Kenya. All protocols observed, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Goodwill Ambassadors of the Grain from Ukraine Initiative, and as a son of the African continent, I am deeply honored to be with you today on behalf of the Goodwill Ambassadors to say thank you to the people of Ukraine, to President Zelensky and his entire government for their fortitude and for their generosity of spirit. As we all know, there comes a time when a man is down and a people and a population are down, all too often not through any fault of theirs. That is what our brothers and sisters here in Kenya are going through because of the drought. It is always heartwarming when a brother, a sister, a friend raises a finger to lend a hand. It is extraordinarily moving, uplifting, when that finger and that hand comes from a people that are themselves going through extremely challenging moments as our brothers and sisters in Ukraine dealing with a war that has been imposed on them. As some of you may be aware, in November 2022, a few months after the signing of the Black Sea Agreement, President Volodymyr Zelensky decided to nominate to create the International Coordination Group for the Prevention of Hunger, which is a pool of goodwill ambassadors, in which he's got 4 African leaders. In many ways, and to his wisdom, he was with a lot of foresight indicating what we hear now more frequently than ever before from countries in the global south, which is to say that even in your goodness, there should be nothing about us without us. So our group of 4 African leaders that are goodwill ambassadors for the Grain from Ukraine initiative is led by the former president of Malawi, former President Dr. Joyce Banda. She would very much have loved to be with you today. In fact, she planned to be here for this event. But as we all know, just last week, Cyclone Freddy hit Mozambique, Malawi, Madagascar, and caused devastation across the neighboring country of Malawi. She's today, as we speak, in Zumba, which is in the southern part of the country, coordinating relief efforts there as well. So I will ask that as we celebrate the delivery for Kenya, we also keep our thoughts and prayers with our brothers and sisters in Malawi. I would also like to ask, even more importantly, that we keep our thoughts and our prayers with our brothers and sisters in Ukraine, that each and every one of us in our prayers or in our official duties for those that represent nation states would work as best they can to bring this war to an end, so that the people of Ukraine can regain a sense of normalcy in their lives, but also so that the government of Ukraine under President Zelensky can continue to play its positive role around the world as an actor for good, to help the world be a guarantor of food security, which is now a priority as declared by the United Nations for the world and especially for this continent. I would just like to finish by thanking Dr. Stephen Jackson and the whole UN system, as well as Lauren and all of the colleagues of the World Food Programme for having accepted to be the linchpin of this operation, because it is going to be by your efficiency and your effectiveness that we can guarantee that this goodwill gesture, this act of global solidarity, would actually be delivered to the populations that are the most vulnerable. I want to thank you for your time and attention.
Your Excellency, allow me now to invite the Ambassador of the Kingdom of Norway.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, Deputy President, CSS present, Permanent Secretaries present, colleagues from embassies, Kenya Port Authorities, distinguished guests. It's a great honor to stand here today, because what we are part of today and what we have seen is solidarity. Solidarity between countries and between continents. Grain from Ukraine, as already been said, a country that itself is dragged into a bloody war by the Russian invasion, and with the devastating humanitarian consequences following that. Transported to Kenya through support from partner countries present here today. I'm very proud to present Norway in this. Just a couple of days ago, the Norwegian Parliament approved a package of $500 million to support countries that are particularly hit by the effects of the Russian invasion. $500 million, that is, from a country of 5 million people, it's quite substantial. The package was named the Nansen package, named after the great Norwegian humanitarian, Dr. Fridtjof Nansen, who played such a key role in fighting the devastating famine in Ukraine in 1932, as my friend the ambassador has already talked about. That is a fitting name for an expression of solidarity. So the US $5 million that Norway has provided to the transport of this is, in my eyes, a chain of solidarity that stretches back into time and to the present. Solidarity will still be needed, and it will continue. But there is one quick way to change the situation, so we all can go back to normal. Grain can come from Ukraine, fertilizer and seeds can come from other countries. And that is for Russia to stop the war and pulling out of Ukraine completely. I thank you.
Your Excellency, the High Commissioner of the United Kingdom is in the House, and I now invite her.
Thank you very much, CS. Your Excellency, Deputy President Gachagua, Cabinet Secretaries Miano, Merkerman, PS, my fellow lovely, wonderful ambassadors, High Commissioners, particularly Andre, my Ukrainian colleague. As the CS mentioned, Norway and I are representing a wider group of 8 donors, which also includes the Netherlands, the Czech Republic, Norway, I've already mentioned, Italy, Belgium, Switzerland and Slovakia. And together we have provided the funding for this Ukrainian grain that has come to Kenya. I very much appreciated CS Merkerman's comments that we are international partners. We need to move away, and we want to work with this government to move away from a donor need. And I'm very optimistic that, that the government can do so. So I consider myself your international partner, not a donor partner. The world, not just Kenya, is facing a series of tough economic decisions and circumstances resulting in a rising cost of living globally. And we need to deal with these challenges responsibly, peacefully, and together, both within Kenya, where there are challenges to that, but within Kenya and across the globe. As well as assisting the Kenyan people as they tackle the harshest drought in living memory, the UK's contribution here is also a direct request from President Volodymyr Zelensky to assist him as he committed to his Grain from Ukraine initiative. This commitment to ensure that vital Ukrainian food supplies reach those nations in desperate need has been made in spite of the ongoing invasion and attacks within Ukraine. So as I witness this ceremony, I also hope to represent the UK's continued commitment to stand with Ukraine as it defends itself from Russia's aggression. We are in our 5th year, as we are in our 5th year of drought, this initiative, or 5th season of drought, this initiative will join others that the UK is currently engaged in, including supporting UNICEF's Child Nutrition Programme, assisting 35,000 children to date, and working with the Kenyan government on the Hunger Safety Net Programme, reaching over 500,000 people in drought-affected areas through cash transfers. We're also aware of the drought's effect on Kenya's neighbours and the subsequent increase in climate refugees, which Kenya is generously supporting. We continue to support both refugees and host communities through our UNHCR-implemented Pomoja programme, and hope that the portion of grain distributed in the Kakuma and Dadaab refugee camps will go some way to alleviate the suffering there. So thank you for giving me the chance to attend today. I'm humbled by the incredible work and thoughtfulness that has gone into this, particularly from WFP and our friends from Ukraine. So I hope we can continue to work together on this with our wider work on food security to make a meaningful difference in partnership with our Kenyan brothers and sisters. Thank you very much.
Your Excellency, I recognize the presence of the World Food Programme representative, country director, and invite her here. Welcome, Lorraine Landis.
Good afternoon. Your Excellency, Deputy President, all the CSs and PSs present here today, the Chairman of the Port Authority of Kenya, and our Kenya Port Managing Director, as well as all of our ambassadors who have joined us here today, and of course our where would we be without our resident coordinator of the UN? Ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. You know, as I was looking through my speech, I've decided that most of it has already been said today, and that really my job is just so much to say thank you. As the country director here in Kenya for the World Food Program, I just want to say how honored I am that all of you could come today and join us in this very important ceremony. In particular, I'd like to give a real big round of thanks to our colleagues from the Kenya Port Authority and from the management of grain bulk handlers, who allowed us to use their facility and facilitated all of the arrangements for this special event today. Thank you so much. I'll give them a big round of applause. As has been so eloquently said by our resident coordinator and many of you today, we are celebrating two very large contributions that have already been flagged off by His Excellency, the Deputy President, and will quickly, already in trucks, be moving to the northern parts of this country to deal with severe food insecurity. It is worth, though, repeating some of the things that have been said already. First of all, the 16,136 metric tons of sorghum, the very, very generous contribution of the people of America has been flagged off today. This sorghum will change the lives, will save the lives of so many Kenyans as it moves to respond to the very biting drought that we've heard about today. As has been said already, the U.S. has provided more than $230 million US dollars towards just the World Food Program for hunger related to drought, for resilience programs, and also assistance to refugees. And has already been said, this is more than 80% of the contributions that we have received. I just want to say it is appreciated so much by WFP, and I'm sure by the people of Kenya as well. The amazing support from the U.S. combined with the impressive efforts of the government of Kenya, from the community to the county to the national level, has assured that we have not had loss of life in Kenya despite 5 failed rainy seasons. As you will remember, in the past, droughts that have lasted far less have caused far more concerns and loss of life. So we're doing something right. We're responding in a timely manner, and we're responding jointly as a partnership, bringing all of us together, again, from the community to the national level, and this has really made the difference. Additionally, today, we are witnessing the arrival of the 25,000 metric tons of wheat from the Grain for Ukraine. Since the signing of the Black Sea Grain Initiative, WFP has transferred or transported more than 481,000 metric tons of wheat from Ukrainian ports. 16 WFP chartered vessels have sailed under the initiative in support of WFP operations in Ethiopia, Yemen, Afghanistan, Somalia, and now Kenya. This is made possible, of course, by Ukraine, but has already been said today, by so many donors who have stepped up with swift and unwavering support, including all of the ambassadors who you see here today. This 25,000 metric tons is the first shipment for humanitarian purposes to reach Kenya under the initiative. But I'm optimistic with the agreement having been signed again over the weekend for at least another 120 days that we may again see yet another shipment ready and moving towards Kenya. I feel that these shipments are particularly focused on the most vulnerable and are impacted, that have been impacted by high food prices, drought, and the aftermath of conflict. So I'll stop there and pretty much say the World Food Programme is so thankful for all the support we have seen from our donors, from the government of Kenya, and from our partners inside and outside the UN. Thank you very much.
Your Excellency, allow me to now present the U.S. Ambassador, Her Excellency Meg Whitman, to make her remarks.
Well, Your Excellency, the Deputy President, and all assembled distinguished guests, all protocols observed. It is great to be in Mombasa today to turn over 16,000 metric tons of sorghum to the Kenyan people as part of the Black Sea Grain Initiative, brokered by the UN Secretary General and Turkey back in July of 2022. Under this initiative, more than 24 million metric tons of grain and oilseeds have already been shipped worldwide, including humanitarian aid via the World Food Programme for more than 800 million of the world's most food insecure people. And the